used to be that Hong Kong was the only place in China that you could commemorate the Tiananmen Square massacre. But ever since the national security law, that's been completely clamped down on. There was what was his name? Sanmu Chen? I'm forgetting.
The artist?
The artist. So there was like this, older artist. And all he did was he signed in the air the date of the massacre. And then the police are like, come and grab him. And like he's essentially waving his hand in the air. And like you can't do that in Hong Kong anymore. And then meanwhile, like the pro-Beijing people had like a nice little festival in Victoria Park where they used to have a commemoration.
Yeah.
Which we went to one there, didn't we?
No. Because we got there June like
10th or
11th or 12th or
yeah.
something like that.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. We didn't.
We went to a different.
We've been to many protests
in
Victoria Park, but not that one.
We won't
that
anymore.
one did get because the commemoration had been getting smaller and smaller every year, but that year there were like over 150,000 people at that commemoration, and that was kind of the build up to that's like a sign that there was going to be a lot of people in the streets. But June 9th was the day that technically the first million-person march in Hong Kong.
That's right.
Yep. I mean, yeah, I saw a cartoon by a Hong Kong artist that was essentially about this issue about like people not being able to commemorate Tiananmen Square, and then it showed a bunch of like people because like people used to light candles at this candlelight vigil, right? And then it showed a bunch of people like kind of like with their heads bowed and like it was like gray dystopian looking, but each person had like a little candle burning inside their heart, like inside their chest where like the police couldn't see it essentially. So it was kind of like the police trying to crack down on anybody like materially on the outside commemorating it, but like in everybody's heart there was still a candle burning.
Art can say things.
Yes.
You can't say with words.
Maybe we can show, find that and show it so I'm not just narrating with this. But for the people who listen to our podcast,
Yes, that's right. There are people who just listen to the audio-only version, not on YouTube.
And they have no idea what we look like.
Yes, their only exposure to us. Not our bigger YouTube channel, yeah. But I think this is an interesting thing you bring up because you also sent me earlier this week an interview with Javier Milei.
Oh yeah, that was interesting. Yeah.
And his take. Well, yeah. Tell us about that because I thought it was a very interesting point he made about communism and socialism. Because as you mentioned, when your grandparents, China wasn't great before the communists took over, and they didn't make it better.
No, I mean, I think what was interesting to me about Milei's interview was like, I mean, he's very kind of all over the place politically. He's like, I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I'm a libertarian. So a lot of his interview was about like why libertarians need to step up and get into government so they can dismantle the government. So he's got a lot of interesting political ideas, but he's very against socialism and communism. And the point he was making that I thought was interesting was that he talked about how socialism essentially relies on the worst human values about like envy and hatred, and how essentially they use that as a motivator for people, right? So I was thinking about how like the thing that makes communism appealing to a lot of people is that idea, like the kind of John Lennon Imagine song idea, where it's like everybody is like living in peace and harmony and we're sharing everything. But like the way that they get there is by weaponizing like oppression, like this idea that like hatred against groups of people, the idea that you need to like fight and essentially like how do you get everybody to share anybody in peace? Like you have to first conquer the world, and
kill anyone who doesn't want to.
And so it's just like how can you possibly get to this utopia if you do it by essentially murdering and stealing? Like
and that's even there in the John Lennon song if you think about it for a bit. Like imagine no possessions. It's like, okay, what happens to my possessions? How do we go from this to that? Imagine no religion. Okay, now hold on there. I like my religion. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, so it's just kind of like but it's got a beautiful tune.
Yeah,
and that's
celebrities sing it.
I do that during the pandemic in a very tone deaf way, but I do think that is, in a way, a metaphor for like that song sounds really nice. I always get irritated every time like the ball drops in Times Square on New Year's Eve. And then like after the ball drops, they play like 2 bars of New York, New York.
Mm-hmm.
And then they immediately launch into somebody singing Imagine.
It's because it's the rituals being enacted to summon this world, Shelley.
Uh-huh.
Rituals have magic.
Well, it's interesting that in a way, like there are a lot of rituals that come with communism or like communist systems, right? Like these rituals of you must like the kids in the morning go and then like they raise the flag and then like you sing a song about the communist without the Communist Party. There's no new China, and like you have like your red scarves that you all wear to show that you're like a good like little communist youth league member, and like all these things. But like communism is atheist and doesn't believe in religion.
Right. But I mean, communism is itself, I mean, by an external definition, it is a type of religion, right? Because there's a certain belief you have to adhere to, right? That there is no God but the Communist Party.
Well, and in particular, that there is like this utopian vision that you have to do things to work towards, and you can be part of the elect, and then part of the ones who don't get to be a part of that.
Are you saying that Presbyterianism is communism?
Don't put words in my mouth.
But like
I was
communist
kidding,
officials are
Presbyterians.
essentially the clergy.
So
and
let
they
me tell you
enforce-
why Lutheranism is the beginning of communism.
Oh no!
Sorry, my 7 years in Catholic school.
It all
is coming
started
out.
with the 95 Theses. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only thing I really remember about Martin Luther, is that he nailed the 95 Theses to the door of the church.
Yep. And it is interesting, like, because since we're talking about this, like people will put like, oh, the Bible, it's like Jesus was communist, and they like point to like there's this period at the very beginning of the early church in like Acts of the Apostles where it talks about how they all shared everything amongst themselves. And number one, that was like this godly state that they all volunteered for. It wasn't like somebody was like, you have to give us all your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And also immediately it created problems because some people weren't getting the same as others.
Oh.
Like immediately that's what happens in this unified spiritual community that like, even not without the guns. Like, so like imagine
Yeah.
all the people.
Right.
I mean, I've known people who like lived in communes or kibbutzes, and it's often very dysfunctional. And so if it's dysfunctional on a like 30 people level or 100 people level, like as a country, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean it's hard enough for like 2 people in a college dorm to share chores.
Did you have problems with your roommate?
Why do you say that, Matt? So how do you create a perfect society? Why? Let's read Plato's Republic and be horrified.
Well, I mean, I think that what I recognize is that there isn't necessarily a perfect solution, right? I mean, my ideal would be a free market, but there are still problems that come with it. But you have to recognize that the alternative to a free market is an unfree market. And yeah, there's a spectrum there, but like the unfree market is where the government controls the means of productions. The government distributes everything. The government tells everyone what job to have, right? That is the opposite of freedom in the marketplace, and it takes away people's agency. People always end up with less because you can't really create abundance under that system or innovation under that system. And so, communism is the most destructive part, the most destructive way to do it. And the free market, like, recognize the problems and try to take steps to deal with that. And there are some steps, such as allowing lawsuits and certain types of like things that enhance commerce. But it's never going to be equal. And if your ideal is equal, the only way that that's ever been achieved is that everyone is equally poor in abject poverty under communism. And then
Not
even then,
everyone is
not
more.
everyone, because some people are more equal than others.
The ones that control the means of production.
Those
for
are
example.
and those are the clergy of the communist church. That is the communist officials.
No, I'm thinking about how in certain churches in China they like have put up, photos of Mao and Xi Jinping.